Hey guys, this is Martin, and today I want to show you a new innovation which Burp has announced recently, and I had the chance to play with it, and it's pretty cool. So, not sure how many of you heard about the MCP project or the MCP initiative. So, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And not going into detail, like into all the specifics, but just like a brief overview. MCP effectively is you spin up an MCP server, for example, and then your AI agent, right? Like for example, Claude Desktop or whatever your agent software is, can communicate with a tool through the MCP server. So the easiest way to understand this is like you have a chatbot interface, which is your AI agent, then you have an MCP server, and you're sending commands to the MCP server, and then the MCP server does tool action. So what I mean by tool action basically is like, for example, invoking an access an API or something like this, accessing a database, retrieving data, sending data, those kind of things. So this is really where it gets agentic, that we are moving away from the traditional protocols or from the traditional use cases where you just have a chatbot, right? Like now you can actually interact via human language, via natural language with services. And, Cursor is one of them, for example, for coding, but Burp has created this MCP server, which allows you to use, for example, Claude Desktop to actually send commands to Burp, and then Burp does stuff, right? And so this is an extension you can download from the web store, basically. So super cool. It works for both professional and community. And they give you the link here to Model Context Protocol, so you can read up on this, what it actually does and how it actually works, and what's the purpose of the whole thing. But I want to show you like a real quick demonstration. So if you head over to Burp, let me start here first. So you will go to the web store, and then in the web store, you simply say MCP, right? And then the MCP server, so I have already installed it. You would reinstall it. Well, you would install it for the first time. And then once it's done, you have like an MCP tab, right? And in this MCP tab, you can pretty much leave everything to default. So the local host, and they have chosen the server port 9876, which is completely cool. And then you have like an auto kind of provisioning functionality. So one-click install to Claude Desktop, which I have performed basically. And you can also do this manually. You can read up, so there's documentation and things how to do this. But once it's up and running, you simply can go over to Claude and say, and then you can interact with Burp through Claude, right? And then you just say, open repeater tab in Burp, right? And then I'm saying this, and what it's going to do now is basically it says like you haven't provided the request, and so it's probably taking a sample request, and then now it says like, do you want to allow this action to happen? So that's the actual interaction between the UI and through the MCP server and Burp, and I say like allow once, for example, and then something is happening. Now it says like I have created a new repeater tab. And if you come over to repeater here, you will see there is like an example get. And this was created, and earlier I've done like an MCP test. And so you can start interacting with it, right? Like you could now say to Claude, give me 10 common commands or use cases for interacting with Burp via Burp MCP, something like this. So, and then it gives you ideas, but you can literally, like, for example, say like, give me the proxy history, or, and then it's putting it into your context here. And then you can obviously ask Claude or other agent tools for more information. Like repeater tab is the one we have just done. You can also say like send a request, encode and decode. So and those are just samples, right? Like toggling the proxy intercept, like turn on the intercept, you could say, and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool what's doable. Obviously, there will be a lot of security issues arising out of this, because you now effectively prompt injection here on this part may trigger unintended actions or from the MCP server to the actual tool. So this is certainly something companies will need to take a look at, permission levels and whatnot. But I just want to give you like a very brief overview, like what this does and how this looks like in practice. It's definitely going to be useful, and check it out. Like, you don't need any paid plan or something like this. So it works with the Claude free plan in Claude Desktop, and it also, you don't need Burp Pro. It works with community as well. So I hope this makes sense, and I will see you in the next video.